let's dive into a pretty wild idea, something called the modular mind. And it all really comes down to this one kind of unsettling question. When you think you're making a choice, who, or maybe what, is actually pulling the strings?
I mean, seems like a silly question, right? Of course you are. You've got the same memories, the same personality. There's a stable you in there. But what if that feeling, that sense of a solid, consistent self, is really more of an illusion than you think?
So let's start with what most of us just assume is true, this gut feeling that we have a solid, unchanging core identity. We're going to call this the myth of you. For a long time, even economists tried to pin this down. They came up with this fancy term, the intertemporal utility function. All it really is a measure of your patience. Would you take $100 today or wait a year for 125? And they assumed your answer was a fixed part of you, like your fingerprint.
But here's the thing. While economists were busy building models of this stable self, ancient traditions like Buddhism were basically saying the exact opposite. They thought the whole idea of a permanent self was, well, questionable. They saw our minds as being in constant flux. And it turns out, modern psychology is now starting to think they were onto something.
Okay, so let's look at the evidence. Let's peek behind the curtain at some of your mind's secret switches, these little triggers that can literally change who you are from one moment to the next, often without you having a clue.
For example, in one experiment, psychologists did something really simple. They showed a group of men some photos of attractive women. And right after, they tested that supposedly stable personality trait, their financial patience, by offering them a choice. Some cash right now or a bigger pile of cash later.
So what do you think happened? Could just looking at a few pictures actually change something as fundamental as your financial strategy? It sounds kind of crazy, but the results, well, they speak for themselves. It's wild. After seeing the pictures, the men became way less patient. Suddenly, they wanted the money now. A simple little visual cue, a photograph, was enough to totally flip a switch on what we thought was an enduring part of their personality. And this isn't just a one-off thing. Another experiment had people watch one of two very different movie clips. Some watched a really terrifying scene from The Shining, and others saw a romantic clip from Before Sunrise. The whole point was to get them into completely different emotional states.
Immediately after, both groups were shown two different ads for a museum. One ad bragged about its popularity, and the other one emphasized its uniqueness. Which ad do you think worked for each group?
And bam! Just like that, their preferences totally flipped. The people who were scared loved the ad about the crowd. It just feels safer when you're afraid, right? Safety in numbers? But the ones feeling romantic, they went for the ad about standing out. It felt more special, more intimate. The exact same person wanted completely opposite things, just moments apart.
So, what on earth is going on here? How can our core preferences be so flimsy? Well, it's because we're looking at it all wrong. The conscious you that you think of as being in charge, it isn't. Your feelings are.
Just think about a really powerful feeling, like jealousy. The poet John Dryden called it the tyrant of the mind. And that's a perfect way to put it. When you're jealous, it's not just a mood you're in, it's a total takeover. Your thoughts, your goals, your perceptions, everything changes. It's like a completely different person has grabbed the steering wheel.
So here's how it works. It's like a chain reaction. First, a trigger, like that scary movie, creates a feeling, in this case, fear. That feeling then flips a switch and activates a specific mental program or module, like a self-protection module. And once that module is running, it hijacks your brain and changes what you want. All of a sudden, a crowded museum doesn't seem annoying anymore. It seems wonderfully safe.
And this leads to the biggest twist of all. That idea you have of a conscious CEO sitting in your head, rationally weighing all the options and making the final call, well, that CEO is an illusion. Here's the reality. Your conscious self, that I you think of, it isn't the CEO. It's more like the press secretary. Its job isn't to make the decisions. Its job is to go out to the podium after the fact and come up with a really plausible story to justify whatever decision was already made by the module that's currently running the show, whether that's the fear module, the status module, or the romance module.
And you see this play out everywhere. You don't consciously decide, okay, time to enter fear mode. It just happens to you. And we are masters at inventing stories to explain why we did what we did. In another study, men in a room with women would suddenly rate getting rich as a much more important life goal. Did they know why? Nope. Their inner press secretary was just doing its job, putting on a good show for the perceived audience.
So, if we're all just a collection of different programs being switched on and off by whatever we happen to be feeling, what do we do about it? I mean, is it even possible to take back some of the control?
And we should care, because these aren't just quirky little mind games. They have real-world consequences. When that self-protection module kicks in, you might see hostility in a totally neutral face. When the mating module is active, you might find yourself unfairly trashing your rivals. These automatic shifts can lead to huge misunderstandings, social conflict, and just plain bad decisions.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Both modern psychology and ancient philosophy, thousands of years apart, point to the exact same solution. If feelings are the ones flipping the switches, then the only way to get a handle on things is to change your relationship with your feelings.
This is really the whole idea behind practices like mindfulness. The goal isn't to stop feeling things. You can't. The goal is to learn to watch your feelings come and go with a little bit of distance. You notice the anger. You notice the fear bubbling up. But you don't let it engage. You don't let it grab the controls and launch its program. You basically create a little buffer between the feeling and your reaction.
Which leaves us with one last kind of mind-bending question. If everything you think of as you is really just a series of different programs taking turns running the show, all triggered by your feelings, then who exactly is the one that's just watching? If you can observe this whole chaotic circus without getting swept up in it, what does that say about who you really are?